On today's edition of Dolphin Post Game, it remains Elimination Week in the NFL as we prepare for the playoffs. It's Monday Night Football between the Steel City Steelers and the Dolphin of Miami. Spins up, Dolphins Nation. Let's start the show.
Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun.
Well, Miami Dolphin Nation, it's finally time to define and face the fact. Why did I say define doubt? Well, I was going to say find out, but I said define doubt because a lot of us, and I know there are some of us out there who will hold a grudge when I say this, but please speak open with me. When I ask fans of teams how they think their season's going to go and they tell me they're going to plan for the next NFL draft. Honestly, that plan did not go very well, and you're going to find out before the show is up. First of all, welcome in the Dolphin Post Game, and welcome in the Steelers Nation, the hosts of Monday Night Football's clash between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins is who I was referring to, not the Toronto Maple Leafs, if that's what I was thinking of. However, if you're interested, tune in to December 3rd's season episode content Christmas special between the Penguins and the Maple Leafs in their season series finale in Toronto, Scotiabank Arena, Tuesday, December 23rd, 2025. You'll hear more about the puck drop if time allows it on this show. The head coaches are Mike Tomlin and Mike McDaniel, and the Steelers and the Dolphins come into this game at records of 6-7 with, if you win, the chance to go 8-6, or rather 7-8. Does that happen in this action between the Steelers and the Dolphins? Well, if you look right now, the records heading into the next week, one of the three final weeks of the NFL season for 2025, 2026, is now officially known as the 6-8 Dolphins versus the 8-6 Steelers. How is that all possible? Let's dive into the game. First of all, the quarterbacks. The veteran Aaron Rodgers of Green Bay is now a Pittsburgh Steeler quarterback. He takes on Tua Tagovailoa. I will work on his last name, guys. I'm working on it. So it's Tua versus Aaron Rodgers, the quarterbacks. Did we need any backup quarterbacks? No, it does not look like it. Let's get into the game. It starts out a little bit as you'd expect. In the first quarter of play, the Steelers and the Dolphins both come out with more drives than you can think of, starting with the Steelers' first quarter drive of a possession of 2 minutes and 23 seconds, 3 plays, 9 yards. They punt. That was at 12:37. They didn't have the ball for the rest of the first quarter, first half. That was only one drive, and they punted. First drive for the Miami Dolphins, as they received the ball the first half, the Miami Dolphins received the ball the first half. With a possession of 2 minutes and 17 seconds, they made 4 plays for 23 yards, and they punted. So 2 punts in the first quarter. One when only 9 yards got gained from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and one where 23 yards got gained by the Miami Dolphins, and their 2 punts in the game. Into the next Miami Dolphin drive with 10:14 to go in the first quarter. Miami has the ball 2 minutes and 20 seconds this time. They make 4 plays. This time they go for 30 yards. However, on one of those 4 plays, it's intercepted by Mike Tomlin. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense comes up big. Steelers get the ball to start the second half. Unfortunately, the second half of the first quarter, that is. Unfortunately for them, it takes 2 drives one for 39 yards with the ball possession of 8 minutes and 2 seconds, 8:02 to go in time of possession, just 7:54 to play in the second quarter. But at 11:04 on the Pittsburgh 29-yard line, with the possession of 2.29, 2:29 to go in possession, that is, they made 3 plays, gained absolutely no yards. So the Steelers would punt the first 2 drives. The very next drive, they'd score a touchdown, making the first 6 of the entire game. Meanwhile, Riley Patterson in the scoring for the Miami Dolphins would kick up a field goal for 54 yards, up and good. Miami takes an early 3-0 lead on the field goal. We mentioned the touchdown. It was a direct snap to Hayward for 83 yards. Cole Hayward, C.O. Hayward, right guard, for a 1-yard touchdown. Steelers take the lead. They lead by 3 in hockey scores. It's 6-3. Chris Boswell with the point after, up and good. And now with the touchdown and the extra point, the Dolphins now find themselves down 7-3. So the Dolphins had a 3-0 lead, lost it early in the quarter. And after all of that had transpired, the rest of the game included just 4 seconds of possession time for the Miami Dolphins on their own 35-yard line. They picked up 7 yards with 1 play before the half. The next time they got the ball would be after the Steelers in the third quarter in the second half would go down the field with 14:56 to play in the second half, first quarter of play, third quarter of action, and it'll be a touchdown for Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers deep to Blades. I'll go with MV. I can't say the name. Granting for 19-yard touchdown. The point after from Chris Boswell is good. With it being 7-3 at the half, we get to a 14-3 score, and the Dolphins find themselves trailing by a bungle. Well, actually, they're only trailing by 11. So it's an 11-point game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, leading 13-3. 14-3, I should say. Later in the frame, with 72 yards and a possession time of 4:08 in 10 plays, the Aaron Rodgers short middle pass to DK Metcalf for 28 yards. Touchdown Steelers. It's 20-3 Steelers over the Dolphins. I wonder what the Steeler fans are thinking as this one progresses. They go up by 17. But they get the point after, which makes it an 18-point lead for the Steelers over the Miami Dolphins. That ends the third quarter. Now, when looking at the drives, Miami had 2 possessions, each of which they were -8 and -12 in yards. They lost 12 yards and lost 8 yards. Despite being able to go a 3-and-out with the Steeler defense, one when there was 4 minutes and 53 seconds on the clock, and one when there was 11:20 to go in the third quarter. On the Steeler side, in their drives, they all resulted in touchdowns with 77 yards at 9:06 to go in the third quarter of play, and 14:56 to go early in the third quarter when they played 6 plays for a total of 71 yards, both drives resulting in touchdowns. Last quarter of the second half, the third and final quarter of the game, if you say it in hockey terms, fourth quarter action. I believe his name is Samuel Anderson, reported in as eligible. Jay Smith, he goes on the right end side for a 14-yard touchdown. Chris Boswell with the extra point after, and this point lead that the Dolphins find them down in 21-3 after the third quarter of play. That's 21-3 Steelers over the Miami Dolphins. Goes wider as now it's 28-3 with a 25-point lead now for the Steelers. Well, I guess at this point, Dolphins Nation, we're all thinking, well, we're going to be eliminated anyways. Might as well just try to find a way to get things going. Tua and Mike McDaniel say, we're coming back. We're going to come back. They make a pass short right to Darren Waller for a 6-yard touchdown. The Dolphins have cut into the lead. Dolphins tried to go with Darren Waller and Tua for a 2-point conversion. The attempt fails. The pass is incomplete. So, while they did take some of that numbers down, 28-3, they would still find themselves down 28-9, which meant it was a 19-point game with 28-9 the score for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 28-9 the score for the Steelers, still leading. A little later in the frame, back to Darren Waller, and another 6 gets scored by the Miami Dolphins on a pass to Darren Waller for 13. But just like the second attempt, this one, not to Darren Waller, but to GD on the other side of the ball, was a pass. And just like the same 2-point conversion, the pass is incomplete. So 2 chances on the 2-point conversion, and the Dolphins would finish the final score losing to the Steelers by a score of 28-15, losing only by 13 points. With the Steelers winning Monday Night Football's action, they remain in the playoff race. However, as we'll find out when we get to our game stats on this timeout of Dolphin Post Game, as we'll find out, the Dolphins season is going to be over in 3 weeks' time. But that means, folks, while we prepare for the new season, you can catch my Dolphins season and review show exclusively only on Sports for Beginners the minute the NFL season for the Miami Dolphins wraps up. Do I have anything special for the Detroit Lion fans out there? Keep your eyes peeled, Lion fans. You never know what could happen as the season approaches the finish line. The game stats for Steelers and Dolphins from a session of time, passing yards, and total yards are next. Stick with us. This is Dolphins Football, Monday Night Football edition, and it continues in a moment.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Hi, Scott. It's Ali here. I just wanted to mention that I'm really enjoying the show and I'm really enjoying what you're putting together. And I wanted to just say I'm enjoying being a part of it as well. So please keep up the phenomenal work and make sure you guys keep this podcast going because it really suits you well.
Hey everyone, it's Scott McGregor here. Join me weekly right here on Sports for Beginners for weekly episodes, your weekly dive in around sports news surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays, Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Raptors, and more. We'll have guests on a week-to-week basis and so much more. Lots of great conversations coming. Be sure to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And with that, make sure to like our Facebook page, Sports for Beginners Podcast 87. Just type that into your browser and you should be sure to find our Facebook page. We'll also provide bonus content. It's going to be a dull moment you'll never want to miss. Check out Sports for Beginners with me weekly for daily news around the sports league, surrounding my favorite sports teams and yours, and so much more. Until then, we'll see you at action time.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
It is Monday Night Football on Dolphin Post Game this week. Dolphins, Steelers, still 3 more games on Dolphin Post Game for 2025-2026 season in the NFL. Dolphin fans, let me brief you on this. Let me let you all brief. We're only 3 weeks away from the offseason. And that means 3 weeks. 1, 2, 3. 3 weeks away from preparing for 2026-2027 NFL season, figuring out what went wrong and figuring out how we can better the team to become Super Bowl champions like they have been in recent history. So I'll have an off-season show exclusively here on Sports for Beginners as soon as the final weeks of the season wrap up. It'll be bittersweet if they get club dubs in the final 3 weeks, but we'll see where the Dolphins' schedule lies in the final 3 weeks. 3 more shows of Dolphin Post Game on the ice and behind the benches and Sports for Beginners, the exclusive home of Dolphin football for 2025-2026, and the off-season content will start up when that all finishes in 2025-2026. Now, before we get into our game stats, like I said we would, let's take a look at just some of the action that went down on this 15th week in the NFL, in which we all know that the Steelers are still in the hunt for the postseason with a 28-15 victory over the Miami Dolphins. But what else happened? Well, believe it or not, the Texans are still in the hunt. They took on the 3-10 Arizona Cardinals, or rather the 3-11, I should say 2-11 Arizona Cardinals at the time, now 3-11 heading into next week, and took them down 40-20, improving their record to 9-5, with their record going into this game at 8-5 in NRG Stadium, Houston, Texas. Are they a potential playoff contender? We'll know when the final 3 weeks finish. Speaking of potential playoff contenders, the Cincinnati Bengals took on the 7-6 Baltimore Ravens as the 3-4-9 Bengals, and it was a sad, sad game for the Bengals as they got their butts whipped 24-0. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens keep their playoff hopes alive and remain in the hunt, beating the Bengals, who are now 4-10 heading into next week, with their record improving to 7-7. But is it enough to get into the playoffs? Maybe not now, but somewhere down the road, maybe it will feel like it is a sneak way to get in. The Baltimore Ravens head into their next matchup. Chicago Bears take on the Cleveland Browns, and we mentioned the Browns were against a team that not too long ago in the playoff picture, and I'll just bring this up while we're getting close to our thought process. Not too long ago, we're in the first round bye spotlight. That has been later taken over by the LA Rams, who are 11-3 heading into next week, with now the Bears picking up their 10th win, which makes them 10-4, and they're still in the hunt. More on who's in the hunt later in the game, I should say in the program. But the Bears make sure they get in to stay in the hunt. with a 31-3 victory over the now 3-11 Cleveland Browns in the dog pound. It's pretty safe to say, folks, that the Cleveland Browns this season, the postseason, is out of the question. But is it really? Is it still out of the question? This host of Dolphin Post Game does not think so. He thinks that the Browns will find a way in to the postseason. And yes, it is. They are eliminated from this postseason run. Meanwhile, teams still alive. The LA Chargers take care of business and eliminate, for the first time since 2015, the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, Kansas City, Missouri, 16-13, and the Chiefs, with a record of 6-8 going into next week, will be out of the postseason. The Chargers at 10-4 win it 16-13 in Kansas City, Missouri, eliminating the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, NFL gods, if you are talking about a Chiefs and NFL Buffalo Bills match, if the Buffalo Bills do not make it past this playoff round into the Super Bowl, you can't say it's the Chiefs' fault because they're out. And I'm not pointing fingers at anyone for all the repeats of the Chiefs and the Bills, but something had to give, and a scary situation with Patrick Mahomes, who we found out, and this ain't no joke, I'll talk about it later when we get to who's in the hunt and who's not in the hunt. The Chiefs lost their quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, to an injury. 13 the final score in that game. Chargers win it, but at a cost of a Chiefs player. Will the Chiefs win the final 3 weeks like the Dolphins? We'll see. We will see. Down in Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Jaguars, 10-3, I should say 9-4, hope to become 10-4 with a victory over the New York Jets, who are 3-10. They go to 3-11 as they get their butts whooped, 48-20. In Jacksonville, Everbank Stadium, Florida. So victories all around for the Jaguars. The Eagles, speaking of shutdowns, you heard me talk about the shutdown between the Ravens, 24-0 over the Bengals. What about the action down in Lincoln Financial Field? Well, how about this for a brawl? The Eagles and Raiders brawl, and it is a no-show for the Las Vegas Raiders as the Eagles score 3 sevens in both the first quarter, third quarter, and the fourth quarter to take a 31-0 lead over the Las Vegas Raiders. They win it 31-0 in Philadelphia, PA. So while the Steelers get a victory for the Pennsylvania fans of the Steel City in Pittsburgh on Monday night, Sunday felt like 2 points on Philadelphia, Pennsylvania Avenue, with the now 9-5 Eagles beating the now 2-12 Las Vegas Raiders. And last game we'll look at is down in Saints territory as the Saints at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, LA, take a 20-17 victory over the now 7-7 Carolina Panthers and improve to 4-10 despite their elimination earlier this NFL season. Still plenty more games to look at, including what happened down in Denver, what happened down in what happened down in New York against the Commanders, and the Patriots action down in Foxborough. We'll see what happened there. Perhaps you heard it on Bills Post Game, who the final scores were, and we'll look at the rest of the scores as we go to who's in and who's out throughout the playoffs. But before that, here we go with our team stats, the game stats, if you will. First off, the first downs, it was a 16-22 battle, with the Steelers having more first downs than the Miami Dolphins, 22 of them in total, with 8 of them on the ground, 11 of them in the air. And oh yeah, they had 3 automatic first down penalty markers, 3 penalties for first down markers, all courtesy of everyone's worst enemy in sports entertainment, the officials, 3 of them. Meanwhile, for the Dolphins, they get 1 first down on the ground. The rest are in the air for passing. And we mentioned the interceptions play. Tua puts one interception in the game, but that would be all. Well, he actually throws 2 interceptions, but I believe it is 1 interception for him. Yes, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. With 15 passing, 16 first downs for the Dolphins. They were able to convert 2 out of 8 chances on third down. They converted on the first and only chance they had on fourth down. Meanwhile, the Steelers were taking the fourth down 3 times and they converted on fourth down. Remember, they had punts and they converted on those punts. Then, of course, you have third down in Steeler territory where 13 chances they were on third down and they converted 4 of the 13 chances they had on fourth down. They were 4 for 13 in third down conversions, netting a total yardage of 336 with 62 plays made, averaging just 5.4 yards a carry, and in total of rushing, 135 rushing yards, averaging just 4.2 yards a rush with 32 rushes. As far as the passing game goes, they had 201 passing yards, with Mr. Aaron Rodgers being 23 for 27, averaging just 6.7 yards per pass. Pretty good job by him. He was given 25 yards for 4 penalty yards. Tua was given 31 yards for 6 penalty yards, averaging just 6.9 yards per pass, being 22 for 28 in completion passes, netting just 222 yards, 2 touchdowns passing for the Dolphins, 4 touchdowns, 2 of which were on the ground and 2 of which were passing touchdowns for Aaron Rodgers. 4 altogether were touchdowns for the Pittsburgh Steelers. No defensive special team touchdowns. However, the Dolphins turned the ball over once. Just once. They didn't turn it over a lot. They turned it over once in this game, and that was an interception throw. The Dolphins had 88 return yards to the 63 return yards the Steelers had on just 3 for 9 punt returns and 2 for 54 kickoff returns. When the Steelers intercepted the ball, they could not return the ball for yards, so it was just an actual interception. It was an interception, but no yards gained on the play. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, 2 punt returns for 14 yards. Somehow in the kickoffs, they had 3 kickoff returns. 1 of those kickoff returns out of the 3 was for 74 yards. Both teams were pretty decent in goals to goal and red zone efficiency, making both teams 1 for 1, 100% good at goal to go efficiency. The Steelers were perfect 3 for 3 in the red zone, and the Dolphins were a perfect 2 for 2 in the red zone. They were pretty good. All right, what about the Dolphins rushing yards? We've gotten through the passing yards, but what about the rushing yards? We know that the Steelers had 336 yards in total, and the Dolphins had how many yards? 85 was how many yards they had, despite making 48 plays, averaging just 5.9, not 5.9. They had only 63 rushing yards, 16 rush attempts for them, despite the 32 coming from the Steelers rushing game. And despite the average point of 4.2 for the Steelers, they averaged only 3.9 yards per carry on the ground. Got to work on that rushing game. Maybe next week we'll have a better outcome against the next team the Dolphins face in the final 3 weeks of the NFL season. I get it. It's final 3 weeks. All right. Just to recap, our article for this game, we don't really read articles here on the show, but I'll read this one because it's the final 3 weeks of the season. Aaron Rodgers and Steelers freeze out Dolphins to stay atop AFC North with a 28-15 win. Pittsburgh Associated Press says it felt a little bit like Green Bay, and for Aaron Rodgers, it looked a little like Green Bay too. Frigid conditions, high stakes, the number of games dwindling during the four-time MVP's long run with the Packers. This was the time of year that Rodgers thrived. And while Pittsburgh is not Green Bay, and the 2025 version of Rodgers is not quite the 2015 version, he offered a reminder on Monday night against Miami that there's still life in his 42-year-old right arm and his maddling hot and cold team. Rodgers passed for 224 yards, as we mentioned in the stats, 2 touchdowns, and Pittsburgh kept its grasp on the top spot in the AFC North with a clinical 2015 victory. You can read the rest of this article on CBS, and of course, find the NFL, look for the team and the week that was. We'll get to our game balls in a matter of moments, but before we take another timeout, let's take a look at that game down in Foxborough, and then when we come back, we'll do our game balls. We'll talk about who's in, who's out. I should say who's in and who's in the hunt for the postseason. Now, obviously, eliminations are occurring and the playoffs are very close for this season. Buffalo, actually, I'll unshare my screen before I talk about Buffalo. Now that the screen is unshared, Buffalo is a team who has been to the Super Bowl 1, 2, 3, 4 times in the past NFL seasons. And every time they've been there, the question that everyone asks every season to Buffalo Bill fans who still believe in Buffalo making a Super Bowl ring, making a championship come to Buffalo. Are you sure they still have it? Do they have the team? Well, this season might prove to be a tough one for Buffalo. Not because of the Chiefs, not because of the Dolphins, not because of the Ravens, not because of Denver, not because of any of the other NFL teams I could name, including the people I host this show for, the Dolphin Post Game listeners, the Miami Dolphins. Is this the year for Buffalo? We'll see. Is this the year Philadelphia does exactly what the Chiefs did? Repeat as champions? We'll see. Does Denver make it back to the Super Bowl? We'll see. But as for Sunday's clash against the Patriots in the series finale, the Bills get revenge and take care of business in Foxborough, winning 35-31, despite going down 14-0 after the first quarter of play, then trying to claw their way back with a 14 score of their own in the third quarter of play, second half, in Gillette Stadium, Foxborough. New England would try very hard to keep Buffalo afloat and put a win on this case for them. But ultimately, another 14 would seal the deal for the Buffalo Bills. Revenge is a dish that's best served cold. Nothing serious lead in the NFL 2025-2026 meeting between the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. Buffalo got their revenge. They go to 10-4. The Patriots go to 11-3, despite a 31-31 victory over, you guessed it, the New England Patriots. We'll be back with what's next for the Dolphins, what's next for the Steelers, game balls of the game for the Steelers, and what's next for Miami next when we return on Dolphin Post Game. You're listening to Dolphins football on Sports for Beginners and on the ISM Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners. Return to Dolphins football, Dolphin Post Game, right after this. Be sure to stick with us.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to CNT Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. Sienna T Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Hey, Pens fans. This is Scott McGregor, host of Sports for Beginners, On the Ice and Behind the Benches, and co-host of On the Ice and Behind the Benches, host of Also Weekly in Sports, and many of the other programs on Sports for Beginners. Join me every week after select Penguins hockey games over the course of the week for Penguins Weekly Recap, a new kind of show airing weekly on Sports for Beginners. Next season, we wanted to try and do it this year, but we'll do it next season. That's Penguins Weekly Recap, coming soon to Sports for Beginners, the podcast. You won't want to miss it. See you there, Penguin fans.
Sienna T Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Sienna T Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Sienna T Radio.
All right, welcome back everybody in to Dolphins Post Game. I am your host, Thomas. I am the host of the Maple Leaf Show, and it'll be Honors Night tonight, as it is Tuesday, December 16, 2025. We're recapping the Monday night Week 15 finale match between the Steelers and the Miami Dolphins. We just went through the game. Tua and Aaron Rodgers battled it out. But ultimately, it was Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers with the game-winning victory. They take their record to 8-6 starting this week with tons of NFL action, including Saturday. What do I mean? Well, we'll dive into that a little bit. I mentioned game balls of the game before we returned to another break on Dolphin Post Game. And let's talk about those game balls of the game. But first, to put in place of the 3 stars, we're going to do a player of the game. Not a game ball of the game, a player of the game. And this one's going to be one particular player that I think really stood out on this Monday Night Football clash. I do encourage all of our football fan listeners to tune in to Chris Berman's Fastest Minute every Monday night when Monday Night Football wraps up their action. Always great to see Chris Berman do his Fastest Minute, and always great to catch up on the games that you may have saw or didn't see later when those games have gone final. So don't miss Chris Berman's Fastest Minute during the halftime show of Monday Night Football. And this Monday's contest, you ask, is one for the interest, folks. It's going to be a fun one, I'm assure you that. The Monday Night Football clash includes the 49ers and the Indianapolis Colts at Lucas Oil Stadium, I should say, Indianapolis. Meanwhile, if you're interested in Sunday Night Football, we got the Patriots against the Baltimore Ravens, a game that I'm for sure aware of, that if we are sending you the Bills post game after this game recap wraps up, is going to be one that Bills fans, and I'm pretty sure the team the Bills are facing this week, the Cleveland Browns, are going to be paying attention to as soon as their game finals. Kickoff is at 8:20 p.m. Eastern, 7:20 Central, 6:25. That's going to be a fun one. All right. Player of the game is going to be done like this. We're going to pick the player that we think deserved a game ball of the game, but was also a huge standout. And the player of the game for the Miami Dolphins that I thought was a huge standout had to be none other than Devon with 67 yards, 6 targets, 6 receptions. He didn't get a touchdown, but that's okay. Darren Waller was a part of the touchdown markers, 2 touchdowns for him. Gets a little bit of a runner up there, 66 yards, 8 targets, 7 receptions. And what about the player of the game for the Steelers? Well, the player of the game for the Steelers for me, one that I thought really stood out was, I've now figured his name out, is Cam Hayward on the Steelers. And I liked his play on the ground. 4 attempts, 4 yards on the rush, a touchdown to speak of, and only 2 yards being his longest. I do think he could have had a better yardage run. I thought he had a really good game in and of itself, but I thought there could have been a lot more. Some runner-ups I'll give is DK Metcalf. I loved his performance. 55 yards, a touchdown, 3 targets, 3 receptions. Great to see DK Metcalf back. Love to see him back in there. And what about D. Washington? Honestly, what about him? 25 yards, 3 receptions, 4 targets, 13 yards on the carry, being his longest yards. Great job by him. And now let's go to our game balls of the game. But before that, really quick, our next Dolphin Post Game will be one of the final 3 matchups, of course. That, of course, being Cincinnati this week at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Pacific in Hard Rock Stadium. Then, of course, they will face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then later, in 1 week time, the Foxborough Patriots will welcome the Dolphins for the final road game and game of the season for the Miami Dolphins this year. It's the season finale of 2025-2026 Miami Dolphins football between the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins. Time to be determined still, but I believe as we get closer into next week, week 17, we'll know when the game gets started on week 18. That's the last week of the NFL season, and it's coming up fast, folks. All right, so that's your 3 games for the Miami Dolphins. The next Dolphin Post Game will be between the Cincinnati Bengals, and the next game after that on Dolphin Post Game will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Hard Rock Stadium. That will be the season home finale at Hard Rock Stadium. Be sure to see those games kick in the high gear. All right, let's go with some game balls of the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers before we get into the Miami Dolphin game balls of the game and the Pittsburgh Steelers is next games, which we'll do so on the other side following some final thoughts, because I do want to get into who's in the hunt and who's out of this game for the postseason, that is. Do want to talk about those teams and our next Dolphin post game between the team we just mentioned, Cincinnati. Anything can happen. Injuries will happen. Some game balls of the game from the Miami Dolphins side. Jalen Waddle, I thought, had a okay game. He's the first game ball of the game. I thought he had an okay game. Washington also had a pretty decent game. I thought he played well. Jay Hill, I thought he had a pretty good game as well. Lots of good news from him. 25 yards, 2 targets, 2 receptions from Tua. Had a really good game. I'd also like to shout out Ollie Gordon for his rushing. He's been impressive in the rushing yards. Yes, he only had 2 attempts, gained no yards, but did have 4 yards as his longest yards. He didn't gain any yards as per touchdowns, but he did have a good amount of attempts on the ground. I think he could have had a little bit more. How about Devon 60 yards, 12 attempts on the ground, 15 yards his longest. That was another game ball of the game. So let me go with Devon Jay Hill, and Washington. Mikal Washington. Those are my Dolphins game balls of the game. All right. Now, I do want to get the rest of this action out of the way. We talked about the Bills before the break, before we got to the Dolphins, which was the previous break. Let's go down the list. We've talked about the Bears, talked about the Bengals, talked about the Patriots, talked about the Cardinals. Our game is the last game on the slate, so don't need to worry about that one. We talked about that one at length. The Jaguars 48-20 victors. Once again, if you're a Jets fan and you're just joining us, the Jets lost 48-20. Down in the Giant territory, the Giants fought hard, but it was the Commanders improving to 4-10 with their 29-21 victory in MetLife Stadium over the now 2-12 New York Giants, the G-Man Giants. And down in Denver, the Denver Broncos continue to hold the first round by a threat a little bit, but how long can they keep it? We'll have to see what next week brings us and talk to you then. How about that one? 34-26, they beat the Green Bay Packers in Empower Field at Mile High, Denver, Colorado. In SoFi Stadium, Inglewood, California, the Rams take care of the Lions 34 and send the Lions to 8-6. The Rams at 11-3 heading into next week with a 41-34 victory this week over the Detroit Lions. And in Tennessee Titan world, where the 49ers play, they take care of business at Levi Stadium, St. Clair, California, by a final score of 37-24 and improved to 10-4, while the Tennessee Titans fall to 2-12. The Seattle Seahawks pick up a victory against the Indianapolis Colts. They need it to pick up a victory, and they do so in Lumen Field, Seattle, Washington, with a 11-13 record to an 8-6 record of 18-16 Seattle Seahawks with the victory. And the last game of which we'll have time to talk about, the Vikings 34-26 victors over the Dallas Cowboys, 6-7-1, the record for them. And 6-8, the record for the Vikings. The Falcons, the last game of conversation to look at, but we'll see if we have time on the other side to talk about it. Coming up next, though, when we return, I'll get to the game balls of the game for the Steelers. I'll get to the game thoughts on the Steelers' next 3 games. We already went over the Dolphin game balls of the game, so we'll go over the Steelers' next games, talk about their game balls of the game, and put a bow on the show next. You're listening to Dolphins football on the Ice and Behind the Benches and on Sports for Beginners. Dolphins Steelers Monday Night Football edition wraps up on the other side. Be sure to stick with us.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome back in the Dolphins Post Game. I am your host, Thomas, of the program. Please call me Thomas. I know I usually say my full name, which is Thomas McGregor, of the program. I'm sticking to just Thomas for now, though. Dolphins lose this one. Will they lose next week? Probably. Will they win? Probably. You never know. I'll go quickly over the schedule once, and then I'm going to get into the Steelers game balls of the game. We mentioned the game balls of the game for the Miami Dolphins. I'll revamp those once we're done with the Steelers and we're getting into our final thoughts. Our players of the game as also, I'll revamp those as well. The next games include Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, and New England. I know of some Tampa Bay fans in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that want to be friends when the Blue Jay season is around, but don't want to be, friends when it's sports time against the Miami Dolphins, and you're a Miami Dolphin fan to a Buck fan, so I don't want to tell you how to fan. All I will say to the Buccaneer fans is good luck this week and good luck next week against the Miami Dolphins. May the best team win. It's free football from here on out in Tampa Bay. To Cincinnati's case, will either team pick up a W? We'll find out when those weeks happen. This week, it's against Cincinnati at 1 p.m. Eastern. 12 p.m. Central, 1 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Pacific. I should say 11 a.m. And the same occurs for next week, December 28, 2025, at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Pacific. And then who or what time are we facing the Patriots in Week 18, the last game of the season? We'll find out, I'm sure, before Week 17 is up. But on that note, I look forward to seeing all you Cincinnati Bengal fans and all you Miami Dolphin fans there for what I believe will be quite the clash this week in Miami Dolphins football. It's going to be a fun one. I am sure of it. Will it be an easy one? Maybe, maybe not. You never know until it happens. With that being said, we'll start things off with the Steelers' next games, and then we'll get to the Steelers' game balls of the game. And they include the final matchups are Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens in Week 18, with a time still to be determined as the Acrisure Stadium hosts the season home finale between the Baltimore Ravens and the Steel City Steelers. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on Baltimore. January 4th, 2026, Acrisure Stadium, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. Who wins? Who loses? We'll find out in 2 weeks' time. But first, this week, they face the Detroit Lions at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. Or should I say in hockey terms, they go to Motown to face the Detroit Lions at Ford Field. Kickoffs at 4:25 Eastern, 3:25 Central, 2:25 Mountain, 1:25 p.m. Pacific. Sure to be a fun one this week against the Lions. And the last game, the road finale, is against Huntington Bank Field and the Dog Pound Cleveland Browns. And we're the Cleveland Browns, as someone would say, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who would reply, "We know you are." That is next week at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Pacific. And then that's it. Whether or not the Steelers are in or out of the postseason this year, that's it for the Steelers in the regular season. So will they be paying past the 2025-2026 regular season of the NFL? If so, this is what the cards look like. If the playoffs were to start today, the Bills would be on their way to Jacksonville, the Patriots would host the Texans, and the Chargers would host the Steelers. Well, actually, the Steelers would host the Chargers. Denver would await the winner of one of the following matchups. The Bears, on the other hand, host the Green Bay Packers on the NFC side. The Niners will be against the Eagles in Eagle territory, and in Bucco territory for now, the Seattle Seahawks would be headed to Buccaneer territory if they were to start today, the playoffs for Super Bowl 60 in the NFL. The teams that are in and out, we'll do this briefly for the AFC. We'll get to the NFC elimination teams. If there is time, we do have the game balls of the game for the Steelers to get to. We'll get to them. Out for the first time since 2015, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. They're gone. The Miami Dolphins are out as well. Yes, Dolphins fans, as harsh as it is to tell you, they are out of this year's postseason. But we all knew that if we all thought the first couple of weeks we were tanking the season so we would get the number one pick. Also out, the Tennessee Titans, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Cleveland Browns, and the New York Jets alongside Cincinnati. So those are the eliminated teams in the AFC. Still in the hunt, we got the Ravens, Indianapolis Colts, the Houston Texans, Buffalo, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Jaguars, and the Denver Broncos, who have already clinched a playoff berth. They could get the whole division and the conference if scenarios apply this week in the Steelers' favor. I should say Broncos' favor, the Broncos' favor. Will it happen? That's beside the point of will it be a good game. We'll see what the Broncos can do, and if they win and the scenarios that they need to win play out as expected, perhaps the AFC has their first round bye before the end of this season. Is this Denver's year? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. Game balls of the game that I mentioned in the Miami Dolphins, I gave one to Devon a chain. Aaron Waller, I believe, was one of them. Jay Hill was one of them, and Mikael Washington, I know, was another one. So it looks like I had 4 game balls to give. But I didn't really talk about Darren Waller except for the touchdowns that I mentioned earlier when we broke the game down. Meanwhile, in the game balls of the game for the Steelers, DK Metcalf gets his first game ball of the game for me. I also want to give a game ball out to Connor Hayward. And how about Mr. Veteran himself, Aaron Rodgers, 23 for 27 completion attempts, 224 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions thrown. Great job by the veteran Aaron Rodgers in the NFL. He's still got it, guys. As long as he's got power in his body, he's got it going on still. And what about, Kay Gainwell? I thought he had a good game as well. Probably the best game out of everybody. And that's why he gets a game ball as well. So I got DK Metcalf, Connor Hayward, Aaron Rodgers, and Kay Gainwell. That's right, Kay Gainwell. I thought he had a really good game ball game of the game. And I would be remiss to say he was one of the players of the game for the Steelers, but the real player of the game for me is Aaron Rodgers with his 2 touchdowns and no picks. Really good job by him, and it's going to be one of the good ones to remember. Ollie Gordon, I'll give him a runner-up there for game ball of the game. Just a tough season for the Miami Dolphins this year. Maybe we'll pick it up better next season. We'll see what happens. Things happen. Injuries will get you in the end. But ultimately, I think these are perfect game balls of the game. Aaron Rodgers, Kay Gainwell, Connor Hayward, and DK Metcalf, your game balls of the game for the Steelers. Now, let's talk about this game in full. Now, obviously, we know this is the only meeting of the NFL season that the Steelers and the Miami Dolphins will meet in. And it was a game where if you won, you're still in the hunt to play the postseason. If you lost, just wait 3 more weeks and then your offseason begins. But the offseason officially begins when everybody and the postseason is over for the NFL, which of course is still weeks away. 3 weeks away from the postseason, but from crowning a champion, still weeks away. So what's going to happen these last 3 weeks? Well, I know one thing. The Steelers and the Dolphins are going to try their very hardest. The Steelers in general are going to try their very hardest to make a push for the playoffs and keep them in the hunt for as long as they can. But there's only 1 week left after next week. And then if they haven't clinched by then, they're basically out of the postseason. Will that happen, Steelers fans? I don't know. I hope it doesn't happen, but you just never know. The Dolphin fans, no matter how the next games go here on Dolphin Post Game, whether it's the Bengals winning or the Dolphins winning, I think we can pretty much say this season was trash, as most of us will say. And when we all thought we knew what the Dolphins were doing, they were tanking so that they could get the #1 draft pick in the NFL or a part of the draft class for next year, next season. We all knew that they were tanking for a reason. And then they started winning games, and we thought, what are you doing? You're supposed to be losing. You're supposed to be losing. You want the #1 pick. And they said, nope, we're going to start winning games because we don't want to get in trouble for tanking so much. No matter what the Dolphins' plan was this season, I don't want to say failed because it did fail, but it was unsuccessful. The plan was unsuccessful. Does Mike McDaniel become the head coach next season of the Dolphins? I don't know. Will he be a head coach with the Dolphins or any other team in the NFL next season? I don't know. We'll discuss it on the off-season edition of the Miami Dolphins Sports for Beginners special, off-season of Miami Dolphin football. So we'll discuss it. I'm not sure Mike McDaniel stays after next season. I'm pretty sure he's probably gone. But who fills in his role? That's a question I got to think about as the rest of the season rolls on. So with that being said, good luck, Steelers, to your next opponent that you face in the Detroit Lions. Good luck to the Dolphins opponent in the Cincinnati Bengals, who play us next time on Dolphin Post Game. We'll talk about that game, how it went down next time on Dolphin Post Game. And good luck to everybody in the remaining 3 weeks of the NFL season. That includes Sunday night's matchup between the Patriots and the Ravens, the 4:25 matchups, not including the Steelers and Lions, between the Texans and Raiders, the Cardinals and Falcons, Broncos, Jaguars at 4:05. And in the 1 o'clock slate, we got a bundle of games, including the Chiefs and Titans, Bengals, Dolphins, Bills, Browns. Give it up for Vikings, Giants, Saints, Jets, Panthers, Buccaneers, and then coming up one night from tonight at 8:15 p.m. to kick off Week 16, we have the Seattle Seahawks in Lumen Field, Seattle, Washington against the LA Rams. And your Saturday contests include 5 o'clock action against the Eagles and Commanders, and the Bears are taking on the Packers late Saturday night, 8:20. The start time on the East Coast in Soldier Field, Chicago, Illinois. That's going to be a fun one. If I could classify the Dolphins season and the Steelers season, despite the Steelers winning this one by a final score of 28-15, I would say that it was a great season for both teams that will very much be remembered for those who make it into the playoffs, whether that is the Steelers' next move or not. And possibly, I will say that it was a decent enough season for me. I don't know how you Dolphins fans feel about it, but I feel like it was a decent enough season so far. But I will tell you this. Let's finish the season strong. If we win the next 3, that's fine with me. It was a decent season. It was a good try, good effort, bad start, decent try to come back. But unfortunately, it wasn't on the cards this year for a postseason run. With that being said, that is it for this edition of Dolphin Post Game. Thank you very much for joining us. If you like what you're listening to from the Dolphin football and would like more next season on Dolphin Post Game, remember to click like if you like what you're listening to. Click subscribe if you really like it. Tell all your friends, Dolphins Nation. And until next week, when they take on the Cincinnati Bengals, we'll see you next time on Dolphins Post Game. Fins up until then. Hopefully the rest of the season is worth talking about. That's it for me on Sports for Beginners and on the ice and behind the benches until Bengals Dolphins wraps up. We'll have the game for you next time on Dolphin Post Game. Peace.
Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.